Hey guys, how's everyone doing? This is Sir Jedi Sentinel, and welcome back to Sentinel Reviews. Unfortunately, because of bad scheduling, as you can see, we are doing nighttime recording again. Doctor Who Flux, Chapter 5 Survivors of the Flux. As always, I will be talking spoilers, so if you have not seen the episode yet, this is your one and only warning to jump ship now. And so this seems to be a really polarizing episode. Some people don't like it, some people really do. Like, even more so than a lot of the episodes in this era. And I kind of find myself somewhere in the middle. Overall, I would probably say this is in overall my overall Flux ranking. This is somewhere around Once Upon Time for me as one of the weaker episodes of this season. But there are plenty of positives, but let's talk about it. So, first of all, I will say that, I've talked about this in the past. One of the problems with Flux overall has been how unbalanced it is, like either an episode focuses too strongly on the Flux arc that the plot of the individual episode itself suffers, or the focus is so strongly on the episode itself that the greater Flux arc suffers. Like, this was the problem with Village of the Angels, as I said last week. Wow, I am out of it. I should really not do these at 11 at night. Um, you know, Village of the Angels was so strong on its own that whenever the Flux arc came in, it felt intrusive. I will say we finally seem to have hit some sort of balance. In terms of all the plots, Survivors of the Flux is the most well balanced episode we've had so far. Everything is given the right amount of time. That being said, too, in this regard, I will say, I don't really have many thoughts on this episode, really, because let's be honest, this is leading into the finale. This is purely a setup episode. The entire point of this episode is to move all the pieces into position for the finale. And that's what all the plots are doing. Like, it's putting where Bell is, where Vinder is, where the Doctor is, where Carvanista is. Carvanista's back here. And kind of everything that's happened. So, but like I said, a lot of the plots we get here are just moving characters into place for the finale. Like, we get maybe 2 scenes with Bell, we get 2 scenes with Vinder, but beyond that, we have 3 main plots in this episode. What happened to the Doctor after the Division recalled her? What happened with Yaz and Dan? And then the third plot, which I'll kind of get into a little bit. Actually, I'll get into it right now. So, no, do I want to start with that? No, I'll start with the Yaz and Dan plot. No, I don't. Where do I want to start? Okay, I'll start with the third plot. So the third plot basically involves Unit. See, everyone who complained about Unit being shut down by Brexit, yeah, we knew it was always coming back. It came back. You complained about nothing. And here we actually get a little more about what happened in Resolution when it was shut down. So this episode, this plot point surprisingly follows Vinder's boss from Once Upon Time, who is called the Grand Serpent and is disguising himself as a man named Prentice. And over time, he's tried to incorporate himself into Unit for some reason. We find out what that reason is, and it'll be interesting to see where that leads. But, basically, he befriends the people in charge, and then when the opportunity comes to steal their positions, he kills them. I really like this character, and I can't wait to see where this is going. A lot of people are speculating he's the Master. I really hope that's not true, because he has this sort of serpent motif. And in one of the other plot lines in this episode, a man with a serpent tattoo attacks Yaz and Dan and tries to stop them from what they're doing. So my theory is that in regards to what we learned in Once Upon Time and what we learned in this episode, the division is, with their goal of trying to destroy this universe and sort of start over, they are trying to prevent people from saving them. That's what I think. I think the Grand Serpent works for the division, and I think the serpent tattoo on the assassin's wrist that attacked Yaz and Dan, and the serpent mark on his tie kind of show that. Also, a lot of people were speculating that serpent tattoo, just as a fun nod, was a reference to, I think it was Spearhead from Space. John Pertwee had a serpent tattoo. I believe it was from his time in the military, Navy. I know he did some form of service. I don't know what it was. And basically, he incorporated it into the character of the Third Doctor. It was kind of a brand of sorts for a Time Lord organization he worked for. But yeah, so he incorporates himself in UNIT throughout its formative years, all the way to the present. And I was really happy with this. I had it spoiled in the next time trailer for episode 4, but prior to that, I didn't see it coming. Kate Stewart's back. I really enjoy Kate Stewart, mostly down to Gemma Redgrave's performance. The way she plays it, this is the Brigadier's daughter, and she plays that performance really well. Basically, the Grand Serpent is trying to, once again, blackmail and then assassinate Kate so he can take over UNIT once more, so he can get it shut down. But Kate, looked into him, and she found files that he thought were destroyed, records that he thought didn't exist. So she knows, and she took measures to prevent herself from being assassinated. And essentially, during the events of Resolution, he still tried to kill her, which led her to going into hiding. Like I said, I really like this plotline. But again, just beyond the recap, there's not a lot to say. I've already said this before. Yaz and Dan stuff is really good. They're still stuck in 1904 with Professor Jericho. And the Doctor left them a hologram sort of explaining what happened. They know, with the knowledge they have about the Flux, they need to figure out when the big catastrophic event is going to happen, which is going to happen in real time. It's going to happen next Sunday. Like in the show, in the episodes, that is the date that it's going to happen. And but yeah, throughout all this plot, Yaz and Dan and Professor Jericho are going to various temples and seers and prophets to try and decipher what the date of the attack is going to be. I really like Mandip Gill in this episode. Just the way she is dedicated to trying to help the Doctor, even though the Doctor has disappeared, and trying to stop the Flux and save the Earth. I really think Mandip Gill has really gotten strong. Whereas Yaz was kind of the weak link in some of the episodes. John Bishop as Dan is really good again. Like, he was great in the Halloween Apocalypse. I really liked his introduction. I was just in a group chat and I kind of realized this and talked about it. With his introduction being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and then him being kind of dim but good-natured and good-hearted, Dan is essentially a better realized version of Dodo. Like, Dan is Dodo done right, And John Bishop gives a really charismatic performance. Professor Jericho is still with them. I really like that. And this is the episode that kind of finally explains Joseph Williamson, how he's been showing up all throughout Flux and what he's doing. Which, full disclosure, had no idea he was a real person. Apparently he was some sort of tobacco tycoon. And in Liverpool, he started digging these tunnels called the Williamson Tunnels. But from what I was able to see on Wikipedia, so I didn't look too much into it, no one knows why he was digging them. And this episode sort of postulates that he was a conspiracy theorist, basically. Like, somehow he had knowledge of the Flux and what was to come, and he was trying to dig these tunnels essentially as trenches to try and shelter and save as many people, and if possible prevent the outcome. And kind of interestingly, somehow the tunnels he's dug are portals to various time periods, which is how he's shown up throughout the previous episodes. It's how Dan met him in Once Upon a Time, and it's how Yaz found him on Atropos. So, and like I said, so here is where we get that explanation. And I really liked the actor's performance. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting his name. Like, now that we got some time with him, I liked how he was sort of doing that Howard Hughes, very eccentric, possibly unhealthily so, kind of aristocrat, essentially. But the bulk of this, well, not the bulk, like I said, everything was divided pretty evenly and pretty well. We also find out what happened with the Doctor. And this is where a lot of the divisive stuff is, but I really like it because Jodie Whittaker's performance was just phenomenal. She was so strong here. As I said, the Doctor has been recalled by the Division. And we once again meet the old woman from Once Upon a Time, who is revealed from the Timeless Children to be Tecteun. The woman who, because she found her, sees herself as the Doctor's mother. The woman who horrifically experimented on her and stole her abilities of regeneration without her consent to give to the Time Lords. Excuse me. Sorry. So, the scenes for me between Jodie and Tecteun were the best part of this episode. Both actresses give off such great performances playing off each other. And like I've said, Jodie's confrontations with major threats are the highlights of her episodes. Just, when she's able to become this strict defender of the universe. And that's kind of why Tecteun brought her here. And like, Tecteun is sick. And that's kind of the idea. She's a scientist first and foremost. Like, she calls the universe an experiment. And like she told the Doctor in Once Upon a Time, the universe is dying. She plans to kill it and start over. And that's how she looks at it. She takes a very objective look at things. And the Doctor despises that. And every time the Doctor tries to every time Tecteun, tries to say how alike they are, the Doctor absolutely refutes that. Jodie Whittaker so brilliantly portrays how disgusted she is with this woman. And there is something interesting. So let's talk about the Division for a moment. A lot of people are comparing it to the Time Lord Agency, the Celestial Intervention Agency. And it's very clear they're not the same thing. Like, the Celestial Intervention Agency is very obviously pure Time Lord, Like, it's run by Time Lords, it employs Time Lords to do their dirty work, and that's pretty much it. Like, Genesis of the Daleks, they specifically enlist the Doctor to stop the creation of the Daleks. A lot of people think the Division and the Celestial Intervention Agency are the same thing. This episode kind of clearly shows that they are not. Like, the Division started off as as a Time Lord agency, but it eventually grew beyond that. It employs the Ood, the Jadoon, the Weeping Angels, and, basically Tecteun says, if a race has use to the Division will use them. Something the CIA would never do. It's pretty much pure-blooded Time Lord. Also, this does something else interesting. Like, so in relation to the Other, I'm not talking about Lung Barrow. A lot of people seem to conflate the concept of the Other with Lung Barrow, and that's not the case, Lungbarrow kind of says what the other is, but that's not the plot of Lungbarrow. It's not the plot of Time's Crucible, another book that heavily leans into that idea. So when I talk about this, know that I am not talking about the book Lungbarrow. I am talking strictly about the concept of the other. So for those of you who don't know, I believe I've talked about this before. In the founding of Time Lord Society, there were three key figures: Rassilon, Omega, and the other. And they were all pivotal in the founding of Time Lord Society. Eventually, a schism formed between Rassilon and Omega that ultimately ended with Omega's death during the opening of the Eye of Harmony. The other, fearing Rassilon would eventually come after him, hid himself. He threw himself into the looms that the Time Lords used to create new Time Lords, long story, and came out with his DNA drastically altered, rewoven as the Doctor. I have always hated the concept of the other because it deifies the Doctor. The Doctor is not a god. The Doctor should not be held in this regard. The Doctor is an adventurer. They enjoy being an insignificant speck in the grand scheme of the universe. So I've always hated this idea that, the Doctor is the other. So what the Chibnall era seems to be doing is, in that regard, we have Rassilon and Omega, and then it seems to kind of be suggesting that Tecteun is the other. And I really like that idea, I have to admit. I like it much more than the Doctor being the other. So much more, as a matter of fact. And actually, they kind of have a talk about that, because, Tecteun sees the universe's destruction as a done deal. And she sees the Doctor, her quote-unquote failed experiment, and tells her that if she left her there, she would continue to be trying to save the universe. Because she inspires people, the hearts and minds she touches, they eventually find the strength to rise up and question for themselves. And that is how you deify the Doctor. You don't make the Doctor God. You don't make him defeat the Master because everybody on Earth prays to him. You have people inspired by the Doctor's actions. Like, I will say it. Chibnall, so far, has gotten Doctor Who. I'll say it again. Chibnall, as a showrunner, has gotten Doctor Who and the characterization of the Doctor way better than Davies or Moffat ever could, because Davies and Moffat deified the Doctor, especially Davies. And God, I know he's going to do it again. Sorry. If there is one thing I don't really like, I know, because I've just been recapping, despite my trying to not do that the last few episodes, it's that in Once Upon Time, Tecteun told the Doctor that everything that was happening was a catalyst to the destruction of the universe. She said the Flux was meant to destroy space, and then the Ravagers, Swarm and Azure, were meant to destroy time. And then Swarm and Azure come in, say, they're kind of taking over, and kill Tecteun. One, I wish they hadn't killed Tecteun. I wish they'd kind of kept her as a recurring character, maybe through the specials, I don't know. Because of what that means for the Doctor, and just maybe a new recurring Time Lord villain who isn't the Master or Rassilon. Because as recurring Time Lord villains go, that's all New Who seems to think exists. But also, I don't know how I feel about the fact that, despite what Tecteun said about the Ravagers being catalysts to events to come, they come in and basically assert themselves as the main antagonists. It's very mixed. Overall, my thoughts on Survivors of the Flux are very mixed. So one of the things that sets the stage is that we find out the Grand Serpent in trying to integrate himself into the formation of units, is trying to weaken the planet's defenses to help the Sontarans. And the dialogue makes it very clear there is an agreement between them, which also kind of helps kill this, at least in my head, this theory that the Grand Serpent is the Master, because this guy is the Grand Serpent. And along with what we learned about him in Once Upon a Time, that shady deal he kind of made, after he made Vendor stop that recording, this guy's a profiteer. He doesn't care who he has to kill or trample on or step over as long as he gets paid. But overall, like I said, my thoughts on Survivors of the Flux are very mixed. And at this point, there are still a lot of threads that have to be seen to in the finale. I think I'm going to give this the same score I gave Once Upon a Time. I'm giving this a 6 out of 10. Oh, no, the moment's passed. But those are just my thoughts on Survivors of the Flux. What are yours? Have you seen it? Start a conversation in the comment below. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. Click the bell next to subscribe. Click the bell next to subscribe to get notifications when I upload. And in the description box below, you'll find the link to my Twitter, where you can follow me and get updates on the channel. This is Sir Jedi Sentinel, and I'll see you guys next time.